Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This episode going to be getting into some more of the bed customization for the 1972 C10, which is sitting behind me. Those of you who've been to the channel before, probably familiar with the truck by now. Going to be working on what I'm doing for the rear bumper treatment on the bed of the C10. So I'm going to get into that right now. So one reason it's taken me so long to decide what to do with the bumper treatment here is I just couldn't decide, going back and forth between bumper, roll pan, and finally I decided what to do. So went ahead and ordered a roll pan for it, and it came. Ordered a Goodmark roll pan, and that's what it actually says right there. But it is labeled as your standard 67, 72 Tri-Plus parts, which either way doesn't bother me. The Tri-Plus stuff has always been pretty good in the past for me for this body style truck. And the roll pan looks fairly decent. It is heavy gauge steel, which is good, but there is a little bit of a defect right there in the license plate area, which is a little upsetting because normally with the Tri-Plus stuff, it's been better quality than that. There's actually a dent right there too. So I don't know if just, lately parts quality is just going downhill or what. But I mean, I can work with it. It's just more work than I should have to do to fix that. But the thickness of sheet metal is definitely quality. I mean, it's as thick as the rest of the sheet metal on the truck, so that won't be a problem. I'm just gonna have to deal with a little bit more body work on this. And I think installing this, a lot of guys just use these holes and screw it on. That's not gonna work for me. I think I'm gonna actually end up welding this in place. But go from there and see. Okay, so I found the first problem already with this roll pan install. As you can see, not lining up as far as height goes. That is as far as it goes up because the license plate box there is hitting on the cross member right here. So I'm going to have to notch out about an inch of the cross member right here to get the license plate box to fit in there. I'm really not too happy about having to cut in the cross member. I mean, it's a pretty beefy cross member and there's a lot of height to it that goes up. I mean, it is 5 inches or so tall, 4 or 5 inches. So cutting an inch out isn't going to be that big a deal. It's just, more work. Here is essentially what I have to section out, and it's about 1.25 inches high that I've got to remove out of this piece. But as you can see on the inside, it's a rather large and chunky piece, so I don't think that removing that is going to affect the structure all that much. I hope not. All right, fast forward about 15 minutes or so. Got the cross member cut out and got the roll pan in place. Got a couple clecos here and here holding it in place. Had to drill some 1/8 inch holes to pop those in. And then I did have to take the body hammer on the lip right here. I just had to tap that in just a little bit because it was not rolled flat and flush. By rolling that in, those fit nice and flush, except this body panel obviously has some damage from shipping that's gonna have to be fixed. But other than that, it fits pretty well. Now, earlier I said I wanted to weld this in place. I don't think that's going to be a possibility because it's hard to see there. It focuses. Got bolts here and over on the other side. And those are the lower bolts for the tailgate hinge. And I have to be able to access those. And I have to be able to access those with the tailgate up. There's no way to access them with the tailgate down. So unless anyone has some bright ideas about this, the way these tailgates are designed is the tailgate doesn't just pop out easily. You actually have to undo one of the hinge locators on one side and then remove the tailgate. So if I can't get to at least one side easily, then I can't install the tailgate, if that makes sense. So at this point in time, I'm going to have to do some thinking and decide what to do about the roll pan as far as installation. I can always screw it in place underneath like a lot of guys do, and then I can easily make some tabs to fit where it holds this in place right here so it does not move. That's not a big deal. It's just I really wanted to have that welded in place. So I'm gonna have to do some thinking and decide what to do with those tailgate hinges. More decisions. I love decisions. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how it's looking, how it's gonna turn out. I think I made the right decision by going with the roll pan over the bumper. When it comes to pickup trucks, I kind of have my own thought process when it comes to the back of the vehicle. And when it comes to the back of the vehicle, on a lifted truck, I definitely prefer a nice bumper. Nothing too heavy, but definitely like a factory bumper. A couple reasons. One, it makes a nice step to get in the truck when they're lifted, and I just think it fits the truck better. Now on a two-wheel drive truck where it's lower to the ground, I think bumpers take away from the truck and it just looks like this thing sticking out that shouldn't be there. So when it comes to the back on a lowered truck, I think the roll pan is a better idea. Either that, or if you take a factory bumper, cut it down and tuck it really nice and flush with the vehicle, I think those look better. So I think for what I wanted to do, I think I'm gonna be happy with this. I think I made the right choice by going with the roll pan. Also next is going to be to decide where and how to do my exhaust outlets on this. I haven't decided on that. I want to do something where it comes out of the roll pan. I do not want to have it come out underneath the roll pan. So next thing is maybe decide what type of tips I want to use. If I want to do single, or I should say if I want to do dual, if I want to do quad, 2 and 2, or if I want to do some sort of rectangular tips. I've got to decide that as well. And honestly, that's one thing that keeps the process from moving along a little bit faster on some of my projects, is just because it takes me time to decide what I want to do. I mean, a lot of you guys might be thinking that's not that big of a decision. For me, sometimes I overthink stuff, and it takes me a while to decide on what I'm gonna like best. And it really sucks because it seems like the older I get, the longer it takes me to make up my mind on something. I have to overanalyze everything, have to do research on stuff and weigh the pros and cons. And it was a lot easier when I was younger, and it was just like snap, decided, pretty simple. Anymore, the older I get, it's just, I overanalyze everything. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. While trying to decide what to do with these lower hinge bolts, come to the conclusion that probably I'm just going to end up notching this out a little bit to where I can access the bolt from back here with an extension or the wrench, and then I can weld this in. I've decided what to do with my exhaust, and a couple days later, after ordering some tips, this is what I've come up with. These are solid 304 stainless tips, 2.5 inch inlet, and it is 2 by almost 8 inches rectangularly. And why I decided to go with rectangular tips is, one, I like them, and two, because kind of everything back here is rectangular. I mean, you have a rectangular license pocket, your tail brake lights are rectangular, so I figured this would fit the best with what I'm trying to do. Part number for these tips is right there. When I looked them up, just got them off Summit, and didn't say anything about a Camaro tip, but apparently they fit Camaros. I'm not sure what year. Somebody probably knows. But where I'm gonna put these is probably in about this location. Not quite centered, just a little bit outboard. And why that is because you got your frame rails and the fuel tank back there and then a frame rail. And these tips are rather long, and there's just no way to make everything fit cleanly without moving them outboard now. So I'm gonna move them a little bit outboard of the frame, about 2 inches, so when everything is assembled, there won't be clearance issues. And I'm going to inset these into the roll pan here. So I'm gonna decide exactly how much I want them inset and cut this out, and then I'm gonna have to weld in, kind of box this in, one for rigidity and two, just to make it look aesthetically pleasing. If you just cut these out and stick these up in there, it won't look good. So it needs to be cut out and then needs to be boxed in. All right, fast forward a couple minutes of precision space shuttle type measuring. Hopefully this thing doesn't end up like the fucking Challenger, but it's close enough, I think. It'll work. And I've decided I'm just gonna cut these pockets out all the way to completely inset the tips inside there, leaving a little bit of a gap around the edge for some movement. So the tips are, I think, 7 7/8. I've cut these, or I'm going to cut these to 8 1/8. So there's going to be it's pretty tight, but there should be enough to make it work. And then again, I'm going to cut these out with a die grinder, and then I'm going to have to fully box these in with some sheet metal, which reminds me, I've got to find my sheet metal. But we'll worry about that in the future, in about 10 minutes after I get these cut out. And as you can kind of see from my tape, that's kind of the look I'm going for. Hopefully it turns out good in the end. If it doesn't, I can always hit it with a sledgehammer and throw it in the dumpster. I mean, no, I would never do something like that. Fits up in there nice and snug. Now I just have to get my sheet metal out and basically box all this in with sheet metal. And then the next thing to do would be determine where I would want these tips to sit. Most likely I'm gonna have them recessed back a little bit, probably somewhere right about there. So now just need to cut that side out and start boxing it in. Good enough. Well, I figure that's probably a good spot to end this video out. I mean, I'm sure it's pretty long as it is anyway, so we'll do the rest of the sheet metal work on the next video. As always, guys, if you like the channel, you keep coming back, watching my videos, I sure would appreciate it if you guys hit that like and subscribe button. Always helps out. And again, next video, gonna be coming back and finishing up the roll pan. Gonna be boxing it in where the exhaust tips come through, and while it's not that big of a deal, it's enough work, I figure I'll put it on the next video and then decide how to actually mount this thing on, whether it's gonna be permanent, semi-permanent, we'll figure it out on the next video. So as always, everybody, thank you everyone for watching. we'll see you guys next time.